Welcome in to week 8 of Gridiron Eve. I'm John Vogel and he's Mike Huseman, and this is honestly one of if you want to look at the picks that we've made this year, it's one of the premier college football spread picking podcasts on the planet right now. And so to get us started off today, Mike, why don't you tell us all how you're doing?
I'm doing well. I am back in the Palmetto State, South Carolina, going to the Gamecocks Aggies tomorrow. But on my end, things are looking all right. I am obviously in that process of getting ready for my dissertation in the PhD world, but I can't say there's much else going on, which is all right. I've been, like most of you who are on now, watching a lot of football, paying attention to that, and enjoying my weekends.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the key here thing, and this is probably why your points on me right now. I think I probably just cut out. Excuse my terrible, shitty internet in Tennessee. Um, I think that's probably why you're up a few picks or like 10 points on me right now. Is I'm gonna just say it's because you have a PhD and I don't, or you're getting one at least, and
I'm getting one. I don't have it
so,
yet. Yep.
I'm gonna 100% blame your brains on
Okay.
the fact that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to,
Your brains are the reason why you are that many points up ahead of me right now.
yeah, I'd gotten an early hole, and then I know we were tied up going into what would have been week 6 2 weeks ago, and I remember you had challenged 2 games that both had really big spreads, and I know one of them I had picked Texas A&M to cover, which they easily did, and the other one is escaping me. Was it Georgia Mizzou?
No, it was Auburn.
Auburn.
It was Auburn and somebody.
Okay, that
Just a
does
couple
sound
weeks
right.
ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't the Georgia.
it could have
Mizzou
been.
game,
Oh, Auburn, Georgia. Auburn,
that
Georgia
was
was 2
before then.
weeks ago.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Auburn. I thought Auburn would cover that spread, and they absolutely did not. So
Okay.
kudos. You got me on. You got me in my game, which is SEC.
Yeah.
So I had too much faith in Alabama, and then they toppled to Tennessee last week.
They did.
And
Yeah.
that's where we're at right now. So I think that's that. I have a chance to make up these points this week, and I am 100. I'm going to be very aggressive with your picks this week.
Okay.
I have taken issue with a few of them, and so it should be a very interesting week once we start to get into this. But let's go without any further ado, Mike. Get us started on the night. Who is your first pick? Game day pick of this week.
First one, I like Rutgers to cover -3 against Indiana. Indiana was one of the luckiest teams in the country to start the season, and they still might be if we are evaluating that even at this point in the season. There aren't many things they've done well the last few weeks. We saw them, they beat Illinois week 1, who, now it looks like will win the West. They were fortunate to get by Western Kentucky, and then, Cincinnati, Nebraska, Michigan all took care of them. They had a relatively close game against Maryland, but tomorrow against Rutgers, who is 3-3, I like the Scarlet Knights to cover those 3 points and break their 3-game losing streak. They lost a close one to Nebraska. Then they got rolled by Ohio State, Iowa. Before that, they had won 3 non-conference games, and I like the Scarlet Knights to get their first conference win tomorrow and cover that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it's been Tom Allen's fall from grace that's kind of been one of the biggest storylines in the Big 10 this year.
Yeah, I
outside of Brett
fair.
Bielema just killing it.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that Tom Allen has had this program moving in the right direction for so long, and they've taken so many steps back this year. I think the transfer portal hurt them really bad, and they weren't able to pull some of the guys they wanted to out of it. They went
Yeah,
with
they added a
Mizzou
QB like
quarterback this year in
yeah.
Bazelak.
Yeah, and even at that,
And I think that was the problem.
They added a QB who I don't know how many other options he had, and it was almost like, we've talked about the musical chairs scenario with transfer portal QBs a bit, and it's almost like they just wanted to get one, so they pulled the plug on a guy who isn't doing much for them.
Yeah. But this pick right here, I am going to challenge.
Okay.
I actually like Indiana covering the 3, and I'll tell you why. It's because what has Rutgers done in the last few games that we've seen when they played in the Big Ten that would suggest that they're going to be able to score enough points to win this game? Because what they've been running this, I want to say it's like is a wildcat offense. They've got their H-back, Johnny Langan, who's a former high school quarterback, playing a lot of snaps. They're rotating a couple other guys. They can't seem to find a guy to stick. It's been atrocious quarterback play this year at Rutgers. When you look at Indiana, it hasn't been much better, but at least they have a guy. They got a guy that's doing it. And I think their defense is strong enough to keep Rutgers from moving the ball down the field. I think it's going to be a close one. It's going to be an ugly game. But I think, honestly, I straight up, I'm picking Indiana to win this game as the underdog.
Okay. I get that. Yeah. When I picked out, my list of games, I kind of thought this might be one where it could go either way. So I'm not shocked that you're challenging that one, and we'll see what happens.
No, it's definitely one of those that could go either way.
Yeah.
My first pick of the week, because I'm going to start with an early slate game, and it's a big one. I think it's an early slate. Pretty sure it'll be at noon tomorrow Eastern. Syracuse.
Yes.
I like them 14.5 underdogs to Clemson. And I'll tell you why I really like them is because every week I've expected Syracuse to go out there and lose one, and they haven't. Their defense is solid. They've got Garrett Schrader from Mississippi State in his second year in the system, and he's really settled into it very nicely. And obviously you can't talk about Syracuse without mentioning Sean Tucker and the awesome year that he's having at this point. Sean Tucker has been out of this world.
Yeah, he's over
combined with their
yards.
defensive play. This is a Clemson offense that's not been great by any standard this year. They flashed at times. Wake Forest is not, a defensive stalwart team, and they really struggled with them got into a shootout, had to go into overtime with them. And I think this is kind of one of those games where neither team's going to score a lot. I don't think anybody's going to get over 30 in this game. But whoever hits 24, 27, that'll who will win this game. And I like it being close all the way down the line.
Yeah, I don't have any problems with that. It's also one of those games where it's one of the bigger kickoffs, games for this weekend. And it was every weekend I say this. I saw a game and I knew I wasn't going to touch it. This was that game for me because I don't like the spread. I certainly think Clemson wins, but this is a big spread for a team like Syracuse who has ran the ball as well as they have and who's not turned it over. So Syracuse is doing a lot of things good. I do think Clemson wins this game. For me, that it's almost, I don't want to say a certainty, but I really like Clemson to win. But
yeah, I like Clemson winning it too. But I do think that this is potentially a field goal game. I think this really could come down to a field goal.
And as good as, like you talked about, as good as Sean Tucker has been, Will Shipley's ran the ball really well too, and has quite a few touchdowns. So I think this is a game that is played at a slower pace, and both teams are going to be very hesitant to make mistakes. So we might see, less risky, calls than we may normally see. Not that we typically see a ton out of these teams anyway, but I think even less so in this game. Clemson's defensive front we think they're pretty good. I mean, we think they're one of the best front sevens in the country. their first big test about that is tomorrow when they'll have to face Tucker and a pretty good Orange O line who has been moving the chains on everybody they've played this year.
Yep, and I agree. I think that's why I like this. I like that spread a lot. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, I think that's money right there." But go ahead with your second pick here, sir.
My second pick was Vandy plus 14 against Mizzou. I think this is a game where we're probably seeing the two worst teams in the conference play each other, and despite saying that, though, this isn't the Vandy team we've seen the last few years. They're markedly better in year 2 of Clark Lee than they have been. And I simply put, don't trust Mizzou enough with Cook to cover 14 points. I actually like Eli Drinkwitz, too. I think he's a pretty good coach. But we've seen Ray Davis, Will Shepard, and that Vandy defense do better than we've seen them play probably since James Franklin has been. I mean, we're going back a number of years to talk about seeing a Vandy team look as good as they have. Now, would I pick him to win this game straight up? No, I wouldn't. But I also don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that they do win, which tells me 14 is way too many points. It is in Missouri. I realize it's in Columbia, but I like Vandy to keep this one close enough.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great pick. And like you mentioned, for the reasons that you did, this defense is playing a lot better than they have, outside with the exception of their games against Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much a given. But no, they're killing it. They're doing really well. The Good Shepherd has been, one of the nation's top receivers all year.
Yeah.
In touchdowns, and he's toward the top in receiving yards and receptions as well. So he's continued to be productive even with the quarterback changes. And Ray Davis has been great too.
Yeah, he has.
And that's one of the big things too about this team is how they've overcome the quarterback change. They've got a true freshman in there playing right now, who is a 4-star guy coming out, played in a Under Armour Bowl, all that stuff. But
Swan, you're talking about?
Yeah, AJ Swan. He's a true freshman, and he's played pretty darn well for the most part. He looked great against Ole Miss.
To his credit, but there's one really, really important thing he's not doing. He's not turning the ball over. He's not throwing picks.
Yeah,
and that's keeping them in games.
Yeah, they're few and far between, and that's been the key.
Yeah,
but
unlike Brady Cook, who's thrown
really
more
difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say, unlike Brady Cook, who's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns so far this year.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But it kind of comes down to also, at the wide receiver position. I can't stress how impressive it is what Will Shepard has done at this point, because we've seen it in the NFL this year with Garrett Wilson. Looked great when Joe Flacco was throwing him the ball. As soon as Zach Wilson comes in, he's not getting touches.
Yeah,
it's because it's so hard to come in and have that chemistry with multiple quarterbacks. And Shepard is doing that. He's done that really well. This is like quarterbacks 3 and 4 for him, in the last couple of years that have started games
it really
at
is
Vanderbilt that have been thrown to him
that way.
Yeah, because they had there was I forget the dude's name. He started several games, pocket passer guy, but that's the Shepard has been the most impressive. Arguably, you could make the biggest surprise in the SEC, but in terms of a player
he
in
definitely
his
could be.
performance, but definitely the biggest surprise, the biggest thing that's making this Vanderbilt team work.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm trying to think like what you just said, biggest surprise in the SEC, and he probably is. Let's
go biggest positive surprise.
Yeah.
Because I think LSU not
be
using the receivers has been a huge surprise, and that's not a positive surprise.
I think you could make a case for Quinshon Judkins too. We expected Evans and Bentley to be those guys. Judkins has played really well.
Yeah, no, he has, and he's been their red zone piece. Which has been That's the key with that offense, especially with their struggles with Jackson Dart not quite being Matt Corral right away.
Exactly.
But
and I will say even go back to your point though, if you take Judkins away from Ole Miss, they're still a pretty effective offense running the ball. You take Shepard away from Vandy, we don't know if they have any kind of passing game at this point.
That's right. Yeah, not 100%. Yeah, they got a speed guy too that plays out of the slot, but you need somebody to stretch the field to open up the slot, and that's what Shepard's done really well. So my second game is I really like Oklahoma State 6.5 against Texas, and I'll tell you why. It's a tough loss last week for Oklahoma State, right? They played really well up in the first half. They got their lead going, and I smartly in the fourth quarter had money on Oklahoma State against the spread. No, I guess I took it straight up and cashed out in the fourth quarter, so I got my profit before the collapse. But they're playing Texas this week, and I like Oklahoma State in this one because I think it's a bounce back week for them. Spencer Sanders has looked great. He's been focused. This is his best year in college football so far. He's really trying to make a case to be a pro guy. I think he's still, a day 3 at best pick, but he's been making that case so far, and he's made a pretty decent, case for himself. And Texas is coming off a tight win against Iowa State.
They are.
Maybe looking ahead to this game a little bit, very difficult to bounce back from that kind of win.
Could be. Yeah, this is one of those, I will say, I'm not going to challenge you on it, but when you sent me your 5, I had to do some digging into this. I'm like, I kind of like the Longhorns here, but I think there's too many things at play to justify challenging right now. I think one noteworthy thing is that Brendan Evers, D tackle for Oklahoma State today, said that he's opting out the rest of the season and going to prepare for the draft. That will hurt them on the defensive front. But I think there's a lot, to counterweight that of they really need a win, and Texas is coming off of an emotional one where they were able to hang on, and at what's it 6.5. This is a tough one to pick for me, so I'm not going to challenge that one.
Yeah, I like it being a field goal game. I think it comes down to a field goal, and that's why I like Oklahoma State covering it, potentially winning straight up. I'm not going to go straight up and say that, but I think that there is a good chance, and that they could pull it off. But let's go ahead and move on to your third game, good sir. What do you have for us with your third game?
My next one, I have Marshall covering 12.5 over James Madison. This Marshall team is wonky. They're not scoring a ton of points. They're not allowing a ton of points either. Laybourne is running the ball really well. He has 10 touchdowns on the ground already and over 850 yards. I thought Henry Colomby would be a little better in the throwing game than he has been. He's turned it over too much for mine or anyone's liking. JMU, on the other hand, has been one of the biggest pleasant surprises in the country. Todd Centeio coming in from San Jose State. We haven't seen this out of him before. Thornton has done a heck of a job on the outside at receiver. And their running back, Ajay, OBC. I don't know that I'm pronouncing it right, but it's something to that effect. JMU's playing really well. They dropped a tough one to Georgia Southern last week, who I will also be talking about later. Marshall dropped one midweek against the Raging Cajuns last week. But based on how thin Marshall's margins have been, how few points they're allowing, and how well Laybourne has been running the ball, I like them to cover 12.5 in this game.
This is another one that I'm going to challenge you on. Okay. And Marshall has been wonky this year, but I think part of that has to do with that quarterback situation. I think the teams, especially in the Sun Belt, have kind of figured out If we just stop Laybourne, we force Columbia to throw, we can bring pressure after him, and he can't handle it. He doesn't handle it well at all. And you saw that Wednesday night last week, when they went in, they played Louisiana, and they were, favorites. They were home favorites. This was homecoming, if I remember correctly, too.
Could be, yeah. That I'm not sure, but
a really well set up game for them, and they dropped it. They just dropped the ball. And yeah, their defense is very intriguing. They got a lot of really good guys on that defense, but James Madison has a great defense too. Outside of this past week, where Georgia Southern was able to march up and down the field on them at will, they've played extremely well on the defensive side. They also had a few injuries last week that I think kind of hurt them on the defensive line specifically. Both their starting defensive ends were out. But I'm pretty sure they're going to be healthier in this game. I don't know if one or two of them are coming back, but I'm pretty sure at least one of them is.
I think one of them is, but I don't remember which.
Yeah, I don't remember either. They're very equal in terms of their talent and what they bring, to the field. Mm-hmm. So it's I'm not too concerned about which one it is. But no, I think that they're going to lock this team down. Marshall's going to struggle to score 14 points, and I think James Madison puts 30 on him. It'll literally be a 30-13 game, something like that.
Okay. And I'm thinking that Marshall's run game, not that Marshall scores many more points than you're thinking. I'm thinking this is going to be like a 24-17, 27-17 type game. So they keep it within that 12.5. Yeah. What is your next pick, John?
Yeah. That's where I think James Madison will get it away.
Okay.
Yeah, my next pick, I'm sticking with the Big 12, and I'm going Kansas State 3.5 against TCU. And I understand this is very bold. TCU is the last remaining undefeated team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And Kansas State has played really well this year. I know that they've taken 2 losses. They've got one out of conference as well that they dropped unexpectedly.
No, they've only lost one.
This is a team.
They only Tulane's their only loss. Okay. They're undefeated.
I was thinking they.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I thought they had lost one in the conference too. But yeah, no, I think that they played extremely well. Adrian Martinez is playing out of his mind right now.
Best football of his career, and that goes back a ways. Yeah. Best football of his career.
This was Scott Frost's chosen man at Nebraska. When he came over, he recruited this kid specifically. Hey, let's go play at Nebraska. I want you to be my quarterback. He was a starter as a freshman, and he's not ever played this well. And so I like what's kind of going. And TCU's had a couple emotional wins over the last couple of weeks. I think that's really going to start draining on them.
Friend of the show and I, Thor Nystrom, were talking about this game, and he made the same point. Like, TCU's played with fire in some of the games they've won. I think one counterpoint to that is Kansas State has allowed some big plays on offense. TCU's has been one of the biggest big play O's. So that could be interesting there. But one thing this is one of the games I looked into quite a bit, and it's another one I'm not challenging you because the sharps and the real heavy bettors are loving K-State in this game too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think that's wise because they've got these victories over the last couple of weeks have been so tight. They've been so emotional, and Kansas State's kind of steamrolled their way through. They're kind of cruising right now.
Yeah, they're running for
just
like
how it is in the Big 12. They beat each other up in that conference. This is one of those conferences where it's almost impossible to get through a season undefeated. And I think the TCU right now, all signs are pointing to them. This is the game that they dropped this year. And it's not a bad one to drop. K-State's a great team. But I think that this is where they mess up.
I think you hit the nail on it. TCU's ripe to drop one at this point. And especially against a team like K-State, who is Chris Kleiman's a heck of a coach, and Deuce Vaughn is running the ball so well. He's one of the best running backs in the country right now.
And he really is. If he was 6 foot Like we'd be talking about, a first round prospect with that guy,
Yeah.
but he's 5'6", so that kind of
Yeah,
hurts.
we're talking about another Darren Sproles who also went to K-State, basically.
Exactly.
But,
No,
yeah.
it's legit Darren Sproles 2.0.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead with your fourth game here.
My fourth game. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead and tell us.
Georgia Southern +2 against Old Dominion. And I am going to eat crow to some extent, willingly in this game, because there are few people in this business who hated on Clay Helton more than me in the last few years. I thought he was a terrible coach at USC. I never thought he should have gotten the extension. And I stand by that. He was a bad coach for USC. Then you look at Georgia Southern, a team which has been running the triple option for years. You bring in Helton. You bring in Kyle Vantrease, a transfer from Buffalo, and you throw the ball 64 times and beat an undefeated James Madison last week. Very few coaches have done the turnaround job that Clay Helton has done this year, and I couldn't be more impressed with the guy. They're 4-3. They're not great. They dropped games to Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, and UAB. That's their last loss. But we expected them to be a team. I expect them to be a team that won 2 or 3 games this year, and they're a team that has a good chance to go to a bowl game at this point. So, Old Dominion's 3-3. They're undefeated in the conference, but their pass D isn't great, and they're not forcing a lot of turnovers. So this might be one where I don't know if I'm going on a limb or not, but I'm going to go with Georgia Southern +2 against Old Dominion here.
Yeah, this is a really interesting. This is a game about who's going to show up and play.
Very much so.
Both these teams pulled off big upsets last week. They both took down undefeated Sun Belt teams.
Yeah.
Between Old Dominion taking down Coastal, and it's interesting because
really taking them down. They took it to them.
Yeah, it's 49-28. I mean, that's a spanking right there, man. That's handing it to them.
Yeah.
But if Georgia Southern was still kind of playing that triple option, kind of settling into that type of offense right now, I would be agreeing or disagreeing with you about it, because they shut down the triple option of Coastal Carolina last week. I was watching that game yesterday morning, to be exact. And that was it was very impressive. It was very disciplined defense. But that's the thing, is I don't think that you can handle Kyle Vantrease throwing all over the field if you're Old Dominion. So I'm going to agree with you. I think that Georgia Southern definitely gets the upset here and wins.
Okay. Sounds good.
My fourth game, I really like BYU 7.5 over Liberty. Okay, so on this show, we have a love-hate relationship with BYU this year.
Oh, certainly we do.
And it's because I talked them up. I talked them up at the beginning of the year. They showed out. They took down Baylor, but then Baylor's turned out to not really be as great as they were last year. And they dropped a couple of games. I know they dropped one to Oregon. I feel like and then to Notre Dame. They dropped the Notre Dame game too. But so BYU's offense, I think, is still potent. And this is kind of one of those games where Liberty's been struggling a lot here the last few weeks. They've got, a redshirt freshman quarterback playing right now, who is actually the nephew of a good friend of mine in the business.
Interesting. I did not know that. Very cool.
Yeah, Salter, really good dude.
Yeah, I knew. So I didn't know you had a connection there, though. That's.
Oh yeah, no, I was watching him play and I had to text him. I was like, "Hey, is this one of your? Are you related to this Salter kid? Like, he's pretty good." Yeah, it's my little nephew.
That's awesome.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
but he's they've kind of figured him out. He's his progression has slowed down at this point. He's gonna need an off season to really adjust.
Yeah,
and they're itching for Charlie Brewer to get back. I don't think he's coming back in this game, if I'm remembering correctly. He's still out for a couple more weeks.
Yeah,
And I think that BYU's offense is going to just turn it up. They're going to score probably 3-4 touchdowns ahead. They're going to stay 3-4 touchdowns ahead the entire game.
even in their loss last week to Arkansas, they put up 35. So that offense isn't the problem there.
Yep. So I like them in that game.
I do too, especially with Salter playing. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into your final pick of the night here, sir.
UCLA plus 6.5 over Oregon. This is one of those where right when I saw the lines come out, was writing down my 5 picks. I knew quite a few of the games I was going to pick. This ended up being the last one. And that's not only, time-wise, is it going to be a later one? I think, is this the Pac-12 afternoon game? I don't actually know what time it's kicking off. I just instinctively assume every Pac-12 game is okay. I just instinctively think every Pac-12 game is at night. So, but when I saw plus 6.5, I was like, oh, that's Oregon 6.5. They might know something there. But like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I like UCLA to cover that. They're playing well. They're doing a lot of good things. And then I had picked games and I needed to pick one more. And then I just came back to it. Like there was something in my mind that was just jumping out that I like the Bruins to cover this one. They're on the road. But DTR is playing how we think he can. Zach Charbonnet is running the ball well. Jake Bobo has been a revelation at receiver. Did we lose you for a minute there, John?
My underrated team this year.
You're cut out a bit there,
John.
Yeah,
but I think I'm back in. If you can hear me.
You are back in, yes. So good. I was talking about the episode.
Yep.
DTR.
No, I was just saying Jake Bobo. Yeah, Bobo was on my Bobo was on my all underrated team this year. So
yes,
definitely thought that he was going to have a big year. He was a great receiver. He was like the offense of Duke. So
yes, oh yeah. And both of these teams are putting up a lot. They're both getting over 500 yards a game. They're both allowing a decent amount too. I mean, in that 350 to 375 range. But I feel like that's that conference in a nutshell. Nobody is really locking down anybody defensive wise. We got UCLA coming off of 2 ranked wins. And I can see where some people would say they're primed to drop one after the tough run they've had. Conversely, Oregon has beaten Arizona, Stanford, 2 teams that aren't great in that conference. But I like the Bruins to go up to Autzen and cover that 6.5 tomorrow.
So this is one of those where it's really a coin toss, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go ahead. I said I was gonna be aggressive this week because I'm down 10. I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a clean sweep and take the lead back. I'm gonna go ahead and put my faith in, as much as I may regret saying this, I'm gonna put my faith in Bo Nix and the Oregon offense to outscore DTR and UCLA. I mean, UCLA has played well this year. I think we all kind of shit on them at the beginning of the year because they didn't play so great against their out-of-conference opponents. They beat South Alabama by a point. They had to come back and beat Bowling Green, after getting far behind in that one. And so I think we shit on them a lot about that, and this team responded to it. And they played well in their conference so far, which is good. It's just this is the Pac-12. Everybody knows the Pac-12 is, the biggest crapshoot in college football. And it's very difficult to get through a, conference schedule without dropping 2 conference games. They haven't dropped one yet. They're undefeated. No. I think this is the week that they could go down. I like Oregon being the team to do it. This is a big rivalry game at this point, especially with how the history of this game is played over the last few years. This is it's got a lot riding on it. And then I also think that Oregon's got the better coach. And I think that Brian Kelly has gotten lucky a little bit this year.
I don't know about that. I like Chip Kelly. I think he's a heck of a coach there. That's an interesting one. I'm not foo-fooing that sentiment, but I'd have a tough time saying a first-year coach up there is better than Chip Kelly.
Dan Lanning. We're going to be talking about this guy for a long time.
As you said before, John, he has put his faith in Bo Nix, and that he put his faith in Bo Nix, and that might be a red flag for me in anybody's book. So, yeah. But I think he'll be a fine coach. I just don't think at this point I'm ready to say he's better than Chip Kelly. I mean, he became the DC at Georgia at a young age for a reason. The guy knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does. I like him. I think we're going to be talking about him for a long time. I really do. But my final pick of the week, I like Purdue 2.5 over Wisconsin. Now, I understand Wisconsin fired, Christ, and so he's gone. But I understand that this is probably the best interim head coach in college football, in Jim Leonhard. I understand all of that, but I still don't think that this Wisconsin offense has the capability to go against Purdue and outscore them at this point. I like Purdue winning this thing straight up, probably by a touchdown. I would probably buy, 3.5, 4, up to 4 points if I was very, very aggressive on this one. But I like Purdue winning this game straight up.
I'm going to challenge this one.
Isn't that
with the Badgers?
Isn't that interesting? I didn't pick a single SEC game this week. I left the SEC alone.
Yeah, but I'm challenging this one. I'm going with the Badgers.
Okay.
Yeah. So they dropped the tough one to Michigan State last week.
They did.
They beat Northwestern the week before. Then they lost before that to the two teams that'll probably play each other in the conference title game, or pending Ohio State and Michigan, the Buckeyes are going to be well set up to play in that game. But to me, this feels like one of those where Wisconsin gets it back on track. They play their game, and I think they do enough to get a win at home in this game.
Yeah, we're going to see. We're going to find out tomorrow. Yeah. So we have right now 20 points.
Yep.
On the line.
We do.
This is the most in Gridiron Eve history. More points on this line. And I feel like this is going to get more and more aggressive every week. I think that we're going to start really getting into this, and hopefully we're staying neck and neck.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm trying to make up for those 10 points. I'm trying to catch back up on this one. So
yeah.
20 points on the line this week. That's big. 4 games, 4 challenges. 3 by me on you, 1 by you on me.
Yep.
Now, you did want to talk about something.
I usually do, but I don't remember what specifically I wanted to talk about.
You mentioned it when we were talking about one of the games. Was it about Kansas State?
Could have been.
Adrian Martinez.
Oh,
Nebraska.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Like I said, he's. I mentioned both. I wasn't sure if you were talking about him or Clay Helton, but one of the two. Yeah, but Adrian Martinez is playing the best football we've seen him play in a long time, and you get him in an offense where he appears to be well coached, and the O-linemen in front of him are showing great fundamentals, as is the Chris Kleiman way, and he has a great running back in front of him. And we are seeing the Adrian Martinez that Cornhusker fans were hoping to see for the last several years. And
they never did.
And I think that's an interesting twist, because I think Kleiman is a decent candidate for Nebraska at this point too. So there's that added nuance there. But
so no Lane Kiffin? Lane Kiffin's not going to Nebraska?
Lane Kiffin's not going to Nebraska. It's a great move for them. It is not a great move for him. Yeah, he's better.
No,
he is up. Yeah, he's elevated himself to above that job at this point. I mean, he's already in a better place.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think, and I also don't think Mickey Joseph is going to get that job, but there are some Nebraska faithful saying, he's the guy. How many more times are you going to hire a Tom Osborne former player and fail at this? Let's think about this, people. We've done this too many times to repeat that same mistake, I feel like. But
have they?
I
they want to do it again. They want to do it again, so maybe they need to do it again.
I guess. I don't know. God, I hope not.
I'll learn. I know it would be atrocious to try to watch that shit.
I think Matt Rule still is probably the top candidate for Nebraska. I mean, he should be for a lot of teams that have openings.
Makes sense.
But
also, what opening right now would Matt Rule really consider? I think it's Nebraska and it's Wisconsin, and that's it.
Right now, I think that's absolutely true. Yep.
Out of any of the openings right now that we know are open because the coaches have been fired, those are the only two he's considering right now. And he's not going to take one of those jobs until everything else opens up and he sees what comes available.
Yeah, I don't think the Arizona State's an interesting one. I don't think he would take it right now.
No,
we'll see.
No, there's too much crazy shit going on over there right now.
I do think if I'm him, I mean, if Nebraska blows you away with an offer, you take it. But it's worthwhile waiting to see if Auburn comes open. If you're him, we're all thinking it will. I firmly believe it.
Does he go to the SEC?
Will. I think he's a guy that would.
Does he would want to go SEC?
I think he would feel comfortable in his abilities to go anywhere. I don't think you make the career moves he's done and then go to the NFL by having self-doubt. I think he.
No, I don't think I don't think it's self-doubt or anything. I just think that at some point you're going to have advisors that are in your life, right? And that they're talking about your career and what you can do and what is smart and what is not. And you look at the SEC West right now. Let's say Auburn opens up. Just look at the SEC West right now. Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Brian Kelly, Mike Leach, Sam Pittman. Just naming those. I'm missing one. And
Lane Kiffin. A big one. Lane Kiffin.
Lane fucking Kiffin. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you really want to compete against these guys every single year coming off of the last 3 years that we've seen at Carolina? Yeah, your advisors have to be sitting there going, look, man, let's settle down. Let's kind of work our way back into the game a little bit. Let's take a Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a really smart one to go to. They got good recruits. They got a good team. They've underperformed. You get them up to their standard. You go win 10 games. Everybody's happy in Wisconsin. As long as you win 10 games in Wisconsin, people are happy with you. That's what happened to Chris is the fact that he couldn't win those games anymore, and he was finishing with 8, 9 wins, and that's not that they're not comfortable with that there.
No. And I think you bring up a valid point. I think that Auburn job's pretty appealing still. If you're a guy with a lot of choices, though, I think between those 3 jobs, it's a very interesting. And no one choice would be best for everybody. Mm-hmm. For some people, Nebraska would be the best. For some, it'd be Auburn. For some, it'd be Wisconsin. The Wisconsin one, I do think, is the most dependent on one thing, though, and that's if they finish with 7 wins and go to a bowl game, Jim Leonhard gets the job.
100%. Yeah, no doubt.
He certainly would be the front runner at this point.
Which sucks for Matt Rule, because I think Wisconsin is the best place that he could go right now out of what's open. Even if Auburn opens up, I think Wisconsin's the best fit for Rule.
It could be. Yeah, I certainly am open to that discussion. I'd have to put some more thought into which of the 3 I think would be the best for him, but split second decision, I probably would agree with that.
Yeah, because I would not want to go to Auburn right now. If I'm a top tier head coach, with the way that Brian Harrison has put that program in the ground in just 2 years, with the way that everybody else just hired great fucking coaches in that division, And that's not to mention, the other side of that
Yeah.
conference right now is really building up. It's really becoming something. The SEC East was the weaker side. Now they're a lot closer than they were
They are.
a few years ago. You got to go play two of those teams.
Yeah.
And
I'm hesitant.
Like,
I'm hesitant to put all this blame at Harson's feet. I think he never had a real chance to win there. I think he was hamstrung by a lot of the things behind the scenes. That's not to say he's done himself any favors. He hasn't. But
no, I mean, you bring an assistant over from Boise State.
Yeah, he's a heck of a coach who took a job that was just awful for him. And I don't know why that happened.
Not only did he take a job that was awful for him, but he sure knew how to take the women from Boise State too. I'm just saying.
To his
boy.
To his credit, there was no legal findings of wrongdoing there. I should mention that, but yeah. But that goes back.
You saw her? Did you see her?
Oh yeah.
No way. There's no way.
Yeah.
You bring this woman with you all the way from Boise State to Auburn, Alabama, and expect us to be to oh yeah, there nothing happened between the two.
That wasn't the question.
No. I was faithful to my.
Yeah.
Give me a.
Did he use university money illegally in that? Was what was questioned, and he did not. So that's the only thing I'm speaking about. Was if he used university money illicitly. He did not. Yeah. But
he made one good decision there.
Yeah, I think he is a guy who, in the next few years, he gets a job at a G5 school coaching west of the Rocky Mountains, and he does a great job there because he did at Boise. We know he's good.
Yeah,
he just went to a job where he went to a place where he was a terrible fit, and it's not worked out well. Which, from day one, I was not a fan of that hire. But you also mentioned a lot of the things I didn't. Of not only was it a bad hire, but for the next guy, you have so many other barriers being in the SEC West that it makes it a really tough job. We are hearing. We should mention this. Auburn,
look, if I
would say this is sort of tangent, but related to this job. I read a report today. We are hearing Auburn is probably going to hire Utah State's AD as their new AD. So we now probably know who we're going to see as the athletic director at Auburn. The name I had heard that this guy had a lot of connections to was Jeff Grimes, coordinator at Baylor, longtime O-line coach. He was Gene Chiswick's O-line coach at Auburn when they won the national title. So his name, got bounced around a little bit for that job, but we're hearing Utah State's AD is going to be the new AD at Auburn.
Grimes could potentially work there.
Yeah,
Grimes could potentially work at Auburn. I could see that being a good fit. But no, if I'm just saying, my whole point was basically if I am a top tier head coaching candidate, why am I going to go anywhere near Auburn? That was just the basic gist of what I was trying to portray, because I have no desire to go anywhere near that program right now with just the risk that there is to that job, with just the other coaches I have to go against.
Yeah.
If I'm going anywhere right now, I'm going to the Big 12. And it's just because that's a Power 5 conference. It still is. Even when, Texas and Oklahoma leaves, they got their teams to replace them. So they'll be competitive. And outside of Luke Fickell, who's a, I guess you can make the argument for Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, but who's a really great coach over there in that conference now?
I think Sark is a heck of a coach. Who's
okay? Yeah, Sark. But you notice how the competition level there is so much less. Dave Aranda's pretty good.
Yeah.
But we're not talking SEC West level where you've got, guys that have won natties, at different places, and another dude that's been in the playoff with an independent team, twice. Or,
you got a lot of heavy
3 times.
You got it. And a guy in Sam Pittman who has done one of the best reclamation projects in the last 15 years in the sport. I mean, he took them from
like
bottom
Arkansas is a killer.
Yep. They were bottom dwellers in the P5. I mean, they were losing to San Jose State and North Texas, and he has them winning 8 games now. And not only that, they're seen as on par and on the level as those other teams we talked about in a relatively quick period. It's funny you said Big 12. If you're looking
just
for
don't see any real. I just don't see any real reason to take Auburn. You're not going to win a natty there. They want you to win 9-10 games, and you got to beat those guys to win 9-10 games. You know,
it's interesting you say that because
it's not
before Brian Harsin, the last 2 head coaches there did go to national championship games, both of them.
Yeah, but it was okay. Look, Malzahn was 100% luck. You watch those games just like I did.
Yeah.
The week before the Iron Bowl kick 6, you've got the Hail Mary throw on 4th and whatever it was, 14. Where it's deflected by the Georgia defender to the Auburn receiver. That was the luckiest thing. And then they go lose to Florida State, you know, in the national championship. But the luckiest stinking run that I have ever seen in college football. Like, granted, they were undefeated to get there, and they had some tight games that year. But those last couple games were so emotional, it's unbelievable.
Who did they lose? Was it Tennessee? Who beat them in the regular season that year?
No, it wasn't Tennessee. Tennessee definitely was not it. That would have been the end of Derek Dooley, start of Butch Jones.
Oh, you're right. It is.
I don't remember.
I have to check this out right now. It is irking me that I can't remember. Was it Georgia? No, you mentioned Georgia.
No, Georgia. They beat Georgia. They beat Georgia the week before the kick 6.
It was LSU.
They have to play Georgia
LSU.
again
It was LSU in Baton Rouge early in the year.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So yeah,
but that's my point. Is it's like why would you go to Auburn?
Why? So I think there's a lot of reasons to go there, but your points are still valid. That you're a long ways away from being a national contender there. The main reason is
that's
money.
What they expect you. That's what they want you to be. They want you to win 9-10 games a year.
Resources why you'd go there.
Yeah, but everybody else has got them too. And it's Nick Saban, it's Jimbo Fisher, it's Brian Kelly, it's Lane Kiffin, Sam Pittman. It's just Sam Pittman would be a top 5 coach in the fucking Big 12. He'd be a top 3 coach in the Pac-12.
Yeah, you listen to him. God, he makes you want to run through a brick wall when you hear him talk.
Yeah, the dude's amazing.
I do think Auburn is a team who will be able to attract a lot of guys in the portal given the right head coach, but the rest of that conference can too. So that's another thing that they'll be able to do, but they're not doing things the other teams in their conference cannot do.
So I do have to ask, and it's for me and the viewers, but did I not see your name kind of starting to pop up on MikeFarrellSports.com?
You did. Not as much as yourself, but I think I'll do some when my dissertation writing allows. Probably do a couple articles a week. Right now will largely be focused on coaching carousel, and when the transfer portal kicks up, they have a guy who is in charge of their portal stuff. Help him out with what he needs. But yeah, right now doing some portal ones. So, I wrote one article for him, and that was the 5 worst coaching hires of the last 5 years. And that was Mike's idea for that article. And then the next 2 articles I'm going to write will be 5 potential jobs for Deion Sanders at the FBS level, and a list of the top candidates for Arizona State for their head coaching job.
Beautiful stuff, man.
And I have no idea who that. I have no idea who that list is going to be right now. Yeah. So
well earned, man. You know all that stuff so well, and I think that's what makes it such a joy being able to work with you and do different stuff.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah.
I think that's about next week. We'll have 20 points have been decided. This is exciting. Yeah. This is really exciting.
Yeah, we could be looking at
oh my goodness
anywhere from me being up 30 to you being up 10 again, like where I'm at this week. So there's any number of things could happen in that window.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mike, it's always a pleasure doing this show with you.
You as well. Thanks for having me again, John.
Oh, no, always, man. He's Mike Huseman. I'm John Vogel. This is Gridiron Eve. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy tonight. Be safe in your football studies and everything else and activities, festivities over the weekend. And be sure to check us out next week right here on Gridiron Eve.